see y'all today. This is a bill we had last year that this body previously, a few years ago, banned discussions of gender identity and sexual orientation K through 5. This bill will take it K through 12, and it also strikes some subjective language as well. If you remember last year, when we had this, after the meeting, I met with the opponents of the bill, and their concern was about some reporting that was in the bill. And one young lady told me she would be homeless and kicked out of the house if she had been exposed. So I removed all that from the bill. And we just simply have from K5, it goes to K12, and then right behind that, we removed that subjective language that says age appropriate, that, left it very subjective. And that's simply, we just want the school to focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic, and not, there is some indoctrination going on. If you're paying attention and watching the news, we had a case in Etowah County, and I won't bore you with those details, but it is happening all over, and it is a component of Marxism where we're, destroying the family and teaching some of these things. Let it happen somewhere else other than our schools. And that's all it's seeking, to purify the schools just a little bit.
Thank you, Representative Butler. We will call you back for questions at the end. But at first, now we're going to start the public hearing. I'm going to call up names kind of back and forth, but I would really like if we could keep our comments to 2 minutes, and that would help us get through to public hearing. So I appreciate it. So first up, I'm going to call an opponent, Susan Stewart.
Hey, I'm from Huntsville. I'm actually going to be reading a statement from a friend who couldn't be here today. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Marissa Allison. I am from Huntsville, House District 21. Thank you for your time today. I am writing today in opposition to HB 130. I cannot join you in person as the primary role I fill is as a homeschool mom to my 6-year-old. Like many other LGBTQ+ families in the state, my wife and I decided that we would not send our child to public school after the K through 5th grade Don't Say Gay bill was signed into Alabama law in 2022. This decision did not come easily for us. We both were educated in Alabama public schools and have generations of family who have taught and continue to teach in Alabama public school systems. I have spent most of my own 20-plus year career teaching in public higher education. But this year I shifted away from teaching college students to teaching our kindergartner, a privilege that I am glad our family has. Today I wanted to offer a perspective on how Don't Say Gay laws negatively impact students from LGBTQ+ families. Beyond the harm this legislation brings to LGBTQ+ students and educators, this bill will inevitably restrict children with LGBTQ+ parents and caretakers from being able to talk openly about their families at best. And at worst, it creates a hostile and dangerous educational environment. Research out of Florida has already seen an increase in harassment and bullying of students from LGBTQ+ families. What this bill will undoubtedly do for children from families like ours is force a sense of shame and illegitimacy onto them by telling them that their families cannot be discussed during the entirety of their K through 12 public education. I encourage you all to think of the myriad ways that your teachers growing up asked you to invoke your parents and families of origin in assignments and projects throughout your education. From sharing what students did on summer vacations to creating art or conducting research into family lineages, from having parents come in for career day to now learning to conduct their own DNA fingerprinting, the origin, biological, and familial stories of students is so ingrained in our education system that there's no subject that won't be impacted by this bill. Every school system in Alabama will have to navigate around how to engage with families like mine, as 25% of Alabamians who are LGBTQ are raising children. Will students of LGBTQ families be asked not to discuss their families? Will schools be able to let a lesbian couple volunteer with the PTA or a transgender parent help make props for school recitals and plays? I implore you to remember that bills such as this are inherently discriminatory to LGBTQ+ teachers and families like mine. Please vote no on HB 130. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, an opponent, Cecil Pinkston. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Cecil Pinkston. I'm a constituent from District 55 and a current pre-nursing major at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. I oppose HB 130. Last May, I also opposed HB 354, a similar bill that aimed to expand on the ban of gender and sexuality discussions from K5 to K12. If this bill were to pass, this would mean the increase of students feel emboldened to act upon prejudice rather than facts. We are already seeing an uptick in violence against queer individuals, as seen with the death of Next Benedict in Oklahoma, who was assaulted in their school's bathroom for their gender identity. An atmosphere of hate like this can exacerbate already staggering statistics for suicides, murders, and hate crimes. On top of emboldening acts of violence, this bill actively prevents young queer individuals from having representation in their schools that would help foster a sense of self-confidence and identity. It's how I got to where I am today. My gender being affirmed from my high school experience not only helped me better understand myself, but also helped me excel in school. Being a teenager is hard enough, but with the added difficulty of alienation and the government being against you, it is almost unbearable. I plead with all my fellow Alabamians today to vote against HB 130 for the safety and security for our beloved queer youth in the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next, I'm going to call as a proponent John Wall.
And I'll be super fast. I want to thank all of the committee members for their work, Chairman, for your work as well. I know it's not easy. I know there's a lot of questions, a lot of different issues that you have to navigate in this process. I think this bill is a common sense bill. And I say that because I think if you look past either agenda, the bottom line for public education is that education should be free from any political agenda or social agenda. It should teach basic skills needed for a person's life: reading, writing, arithmetic. So that's what I look at when I look at good education. And I think this bill just strengthens the law that's already in place and goes a little bit further, making sure that we keep a political agenda or a social agenda out of our schools. We know it's out there on both sides. We have areas in our culture where you have books or things that are influenced by a socialist agenda. You have things that are influenced by a conservative agenda. And I think what's important is we leave those things out of our children's lives and let children be children again. That's the priority. That's what we should all support. And I'm standing in favor of the bill, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Wall. Next, I'm going to call an opponent, Jordan Price.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Jordan Price, and I'm from House District 55. I want to start by thanking Representative Butler for removing the part of the bill that we discussed last year. I really appreciate it. However, I'm still here to urge you to vote no to HB 130. This bill would prevent public school teachers from engaging in any discussion of gender identity or sexual orientation in their classrooms. Now, this is a part of a clear and proud mission to erase queer people from the narrative of Alabama's history and present, but queer people are not the only people who have gender identities and sexual orientations. In fact, everyone in this room has a gender identity and a sexual orientation. If this bill passes, it would be illegal to teach that Michelle Obama was married to Barack Obama, making her a former first lady. Teachers could not mention that she was married because that would give away her sexual orientation, or that she was the first lady because that would be giving away her gender identity. The teachers could also not talk about Macy Jemison, for whom a high school in Huntsville is named, an Alabamian who was the first Black woman in space. If we erase her gender identity, we would only be able to teach about Guy Bluford, who was the first Black person to go to space, and Mae Jemison would be erased completely. Our kids could not engage in a discussion about how Amelia Earhart's gender identity as a woman affected how the public perceived her, nor how she broke multiple records for women in aviation. There are countless other women that would be completely erased from history if their gender identity is not taken into account. Every first lady would be doubly erased if we weren't allowed to mention that they were married to men, nor that they were women themselves. Yes, this bill is an unnecessary attack at erasing queer people from our education, but it also has so many unintended consequences that I think the bill sponsor has not taken into account. Should a teacher face legal consequences for mentioning to her students that she'll be taking a week off for her honeymoon with her new husband? That would give away her sexual orientation. When we blind ourselves with hatred towards a certain group, we often find ourselves bringing down everyone else. And this Women's History Month, I hope you'll join me in an attempt to preserve the marks on history that women have made throughout the years, rather than erasing them entirely. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to call up opponent Alex Kim Yon.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Kimion, and I'm a resident of House District 20. As a public librarian and information professional, I don't particularly enjoy obfuscating the truth, so I'd like to take a moment to address some of the euphemistic rhetoric around this bill and all the other bills like it around the country. Proponents of HB 130 have said that this bill is intended to remove gender indoctrination from public schools. As Representative DuBose has stated regarding her other sponsored bill, HB 111, words mean things. And indoctrination has a very specific meaning: to instruct in a body of doctrine or principles, to imbue with a partisan or ideological point of view. Simply discussing a concept, even those as complex as sexual orientation or gender identity, does not qualify as indoctrination. If it did, I would be a straight cisgender woman, because the only people I ever learned about in grade school were straight and cisgender. But because human beings are more complicated than kitchen sponges, I developed on my own as a unique human being rather than simply absorbing those concepts around me. LGBTQ people are going to be LGBTQ, and many of those LGBTQ people are public school students, even in schools that already do not discuss sexuality and gender identity. Now, of course, the concern about indoctrination stems from the belief that discussing sexuality and gender is inherently dangerous and that youth must be protected. Obviously, I don't disagree that the health and safety of children and teens is paramount. However, prohibition of this scale has historically never been the proper course of action to promote anyone's safety, security, or growth. Students who are experiencing abuse or neglect at home often turn to teachers, counselors, coaches, and other adults at school for support and assistance. LGBTQ students in particular figure out who is safe to talk to by taking note of which adults don't shy away from saying gay, trans, or queer. Those adults, in turn, end up being lifelines for students who find themselves in the midst of a mental health crisis or may face becoming unhoused if their parents were to find out about their sexuality or gender identity. In short, teenagers will be teenagers. They will figure out who they are because the information world extends beyond public schools. The best thing we as adults can do for them is not to isolate them, jeopardize their mental and social health, or prescribe their identities in reverse by erasing entire narratives. What we can and should do is teach the widest breadth of information and truth so they can think critically and have the freedom to decide their futures for themselves. Vote no on HB 130. Thank you.
Thank you. Last, we're going to call up Amy Dozier Minton, and she is a proponent.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Amy Minton. I'm here to thank Representative Mac Butler and to support the passing of HB 130. Eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia, as well as gender dysphoria, are all recognized in the DSM-5 manual for mental health disorders. When I think of a person, especially a child or teenager, that is not comfortable in their own body, such as one suffering from an eating disorder, I do have great compassion. When they suffer with an eating disorder and feel fat, we don't teach them to throw up. We don't teach them to starve themselves. We recognize they need to learn to accept themselves and love themselves for who they are uniquely made. We help them build self-confidence in themselves. Gender dysphoria is listed in the same manual of DSM-5 for mental health disorders. Why do we allow some of our public school teachers and counselors in K through 12 to teach? If a child or teenager feels uncomfortable in their born sex or gender, they can change how they identify by how they feel. I'm asking you to pass House Bill 130 prohibiting any and all education on gender identity and sexual orientation. I am also asking that you add an amendment specifically preventing the use of any preferred pronouns on how a student wants to be identified in written or verbal communication in public education K through 12 and in all curriculum, school guidance counseling, and school libraries. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. At this time, that closes the public hearing. Representative Butler. I would like to say a few things before we start asking questions, and that's first that I want to thank you, as Jordan did, for listening to the people and continuing to listen today, because we won't be voting today on either bill. But I do want to say the bill went from 4+ pages to 1, so you are listening, and it's very simple change, just like you described earlier. I had one question, and then I'll open it up to others if that's good. One of the things that the bill did before, which was talked about not engaging, and it's on lines 31, 32, in classroom discussion or provide classroom instruction regarding sexual orientation or gender identity. My question is this: does this bill limit a student talking to a counselor or a teacher or someone like that?
This prevents the school from doing such.
Okay, that's my question. Are there other questions? Representative
Student
Daniels.
expression is covered by the First Amendment.
Representative,
Congratulations, sir, by the way.
thank you. So help me understand the intent and what you're trying to accomplish here. I think that what we've been trying to do here in the state is trying to make certain that we don't make any community feel ostracized or not being loved. But I think it's important that that all communities understand, all of us understand the plight of all communities. I don't think that does anything to deter us from those communities, but I think it helps us understand things that we can't understand. And so I think for this, looking at this legislation here, help me understand the intent and what you're trying to accomplish here, because I guess I'm shocked at one hand and just really confused and disappointed.
It's really the opposite. It's not to attack anybody. It's just to keep that discussion out of the school from the teachers. If a teacher has an agenda, and just in our county, we had an assignment on the transgender, which up until recently has always been a mental defect, as Amy mentioned. But to keep that out of there, we're not doing a good enough job academically to wade into these other things. We need to focus on the other to get students college or career ready. Let this discussion stay at home is my thought. And I'm not here today just as a legislator. I spent 10 years on the Etowah County Board of Education, 2 years as its president, and was very involved. I was 5 years PTSO president, but been involved in because children are our future. But some of these, I think by, calling up, down, or whatever, I don't think we're doing people favors by doing such. I think the truth is, but I was just trying to keep this discussion out of the classroom, just like you guys passed a few years ago, K through 5, it's extending it to K through 12.
No, we didn't pass anything because I'm sure I voted against that. Now, the other thing is I think we're seeing a trend here. Various representatives introducing bills that are targeting a number of communities. We got a CRT bill. We have things that are trying to change archives and history. Their setup. It's like we're saying that we're for limited government, but we're actually adding layers to it. And so I guess for me, I haven't seen one bill to address closing the achievement gap. If you want to take this out, then what are you replacing it with? And so I think that oftentimes we are responding to a national trend instead of being original and trying to solve a problem, but yet we're creating more divisive opportunities for divisiveness by introducing legislation like this. And so I just, you and I have been friends for a long time, but this just for me is just I'm just seeing too many trends of bills trying to take something out, and it's like we're micromanaging every system there is that we've created and we're responsible for. And we've not provided any solutions to solving the problems. We have a widening of the achievement gap. We have poverty. We have all different type of problems in our state and in our country, and we are addressing things that have no impact on the day-to-day lives of people or improving their lives.
Well, actually,
so I'm just sick of it.
Well, this has been very divisive, what's pushing and excluding people. There is only one race, which you and I both are members of, the human race, and we all love each other. It's beautiful that we're all different. That
we all don't love each other, but okay.
Well, we should.
We should. And if the world was perfect, we would be. But when we create opportunities for tribal, it doesn't bring us closer together. It makes us far apart. And I just see this as unnecessary.
Representative Gidley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Butler, as I read this here, and I will echo a little bit of what our chairman said a moment ago, as I heard some talking about the fact that, the children will not be able to talk about themselves or their families, whatever. I don't see any of that in this bill.
That's
what
correct.
I see here is those that would have positions of authority that would try to impose a certain ideology. Is that what we're dealing with here?
That is 100% correct.
Okay. I don't think there's anybody that would be restricted from sharing about their family, their home, because that's the student's right for whatever. But it's a different story when those people of authority begin to impose their ideas. We know that students come to school with all kinds of problems, all kinds of concerns. They're trying to focus their life. They're trying to determine a lot of things. $100 bills here and a stack of 2 Oreo cookies over here to a 5-year-old. They're going to choose the Oreo cookies, okay? Because and yet we want to set them in situations to where somebody may impose an idea on them when they're struggling with something that would not lead them down the path they need to go down. And this is simply making sure those things are protected. Is that what I understand? Yes, I do also want to mention there is an amendment that is being offered to this bill that would add this line. It says, no teacher or public K-12 employee may display a flag or other insignia relating to or representing sexual orientation or gender identity in a classroom or on the property of a public K-12 school. Is that a friendly amendment to you, Representative?
That is a friendly amendment.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Representative Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got several questions, and I've been sitting here just reading and listening to all of the speakers. One thing that you started off with, and you talked about purity. Where is it defined in here? You're talking about to purify the schools.
Well, that was
Now,
my bad. right there.
where is that noted in here?
It is not. What I was trying to do is talking about keep that discussion away from the children.
Is purity not subjective?
Very, very subjective. Yes, and that was my bad.
Is that what we should be aiming for? Someone else's subjectivity?
No, ma'am.
Okay, my next question is that one of the participants said something that really caught my ear, and I think I agree with it, that, you're talking about in the schools, but we're in a world right now where we have all kind of knowledge at our fingertips.
Yes, ma'am.
So are you going to propose that these students not be able to use those while on school campuses? Because that's a knowledge base.
No, this would prevent the school from promoting this ideology.
I want to know what that ideology is, because you all keep using that word. Define it for me. I didn't see that in the bill as well, that definition. What ideology are we referring to?
Anything.
Where is
of
it
an
written
agenda.
in the bill?
It is not. No, ma'am. I'm just simply expanding.
Is that not subjective
K-5
as
to
well?
K-12.
Is that not? Now, my last question is, do you have data? Because I joined Leader Daniels. Do you have data where this type of legislation was put in place elsewhere that we saw where it helped or it hurt, or we saw higher rates of suicide among those who are affected? Do you have any data other than your experience in Etowah County?
No, ma'am, I
do
do
we
not
have
do.
data to back any of this up?
Yeah, and in the case we had in Etowah County, students sent it to me, and the superintendent told me that it was not.
Was
part
it
of-
one student, 2 students,
It
3
was one
students?
student sent it to me. It was.
So we're going to
assignment.
we're going to have a piece of state legislation to dictate all of the schools in Alabama on one student's comment.
Yes, if this passes, this will expand it from K-5 to K-12.
My other question and I said the last one, but this is my last one. I'm sorry, Ms. Speaker, Madam Chair. The last one is that we passed out last week the Choice Act.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we going to require any school that receives public taxpayer dollars, if your bill passes, will they have to adhere to the same rule, or will just those who are in public education? Are they the only ones who are getting this
I don't have that
ideology?
answer, but that's
Are they the only ones getting this ideology?
I don't have that answer, but that's a good point you make. It's a good question. that I'd
Well,
have to
I don't
take
want a
into.
good question. I want to know what's in the bill, because I've got to take action. I will get a vote.
Yes, ma'am. It will just simply expand what today is K-5 to K-12.
I want to thank all of the questions. I think you may still have questions. I want to appreciate the sponsor's willingness to continue to work on this. If you've got questions, you're going to have an extra week to discuss them with him. So I ask you to reach out to him, and we will finalize discussion and vote week after next.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Butler. Next, We're going to call up House Bill 195, which also has a public hearing. I'm going to let Representative DuBose tell us a little bit about the bill. And we have a lot of speakers, and so I'm going to ask if you can be briefer than 2 minutes, please consider. Thank you. Representative DuBose.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I'm here today to present HB 195, which updates our current sex ed program in our public schools. Our sex ed program will continue to teach primarily abstinence, which is now called SRA, or sexual risk avoidance. It's important to know that sexual education is not required in Alabama public schools. However, if a local school board decides to include it in their curriculum, this bill requires parents are notified a minimum of 14 days in advance with the opportunity to opt out. If requested by a parent or guardian, then the sex education curriculum in its entirety must be provided. Sex education courses may be taught in a health curriculum class by staff teachers, or an instructor may be brought in to teach the curriculum if it aligns with our sex ed standards. You will hear today from a couple of educators that teach sex ed programs in our public schools in areas throughout Alabama. Content must be age appropriate and medically accurate, and we have defined age appropriate in this bill on page 4, line 97. This content still allows for medically accurate information on contraception, condoms, STDs, and HIV. New content added to our sex ed curriculum includes accurate information on Alabama abortion law, including that abortion is prohibited in Alabama with limited exceptions. We're also adding domestic infant adoption information and information about the Safe Haven baby law. Also adding how to identify and avoid unhealthy relationships, including factors predictive physical, emotional, or sexual abuse and exploitation, coercion, or assault. Knowledge and skills to resist and avoid cyberbullying, sexting, pornography, online sexual predators, and the potential legal implications if involved. Sex ed and human reproduction curriculum may not offer the services of any individual or organizations to assist in teaching concepts that are not in line with sexual risk avoidance, or organizations that provide abortion referrals, funding advocacy, or other support for abortions. Graphic images, material, or video footage that are sexually explicit or normalize teenage sexual activity is not allowed. You may hear some testimony today from a group called ACASH, or Alabama Campaign for Adolescent Sexual Health. They may talk to you about a program that is called Comprehensive Sex Education that is promoted by Planned Parenthood and normalizes teen sex. There are many problems with this comprehensive sex education program and what ACASH seeks to implement in Alabama schools. But just to name a couple of them, they want to mandate comprehensive sex health every year from K through 12. And one of the most damaging statements I found on their website that they want to include in our sex ed curriculum is that they want to implement child protection policies and minimize the impact of parents' rights extremism. That's scary to me. A quote from ACASH standards: "Children are also people who deserve rights and protection, and parental rights should not infringe or impede upon a child's rights." You'll hear many statistics today from polling, but one I want to make sure you hear, because ACASH has taken a poll and they may not give you this one, but that is that of the parents they surveyed, 96% support abstinence education and support abstinence until marriage. Thank you for your consideration, and I think we'll move on to the public hearing.
We will. Thank you very much. First up, I'm going to call a proponent, Joy Wassel.
Good afternoon, committee members. I am Joy Wassel, and I'm from District 9, Hartsville, Alabama. For the past 35 years, I've spent my life in the profession of education, both as a public and private high school teacher, and for the past 23 years
as the founder and president of a sexual risk avoidance education organization. I've had the privilege of teaching and providing the type of sex ed that HB 195 contains, which is abstinence-based, risk avoidance, and primary prevention. During the past 2+ decades, school administrators, superintendents of schools, and classroom teachers have invited our programs into their classrooms, and we have served over 250,000 youth in Tennessee and Alabama. As with HB 195, all sexual risk avoidance education, and to be brief, SRAE is what we're calling that, curriculum is medically accurate, age-appropriate, and aligned to the Alabama Department of Education health education standards that teachers are required to go by in the state. SRAE is not a foreign or new concept to Alabama. From the 1990s until today, SRAE programs have been taught all over the state. The current state law requires for any schools that do teach sex ed to be abstinence-based because it's the only sex ed methodology that is both primary prevention and optimal health. And you will find in your information packet a graph that looks like this. This is from the Federal Department of Health and Human Services that says that risk avoidance education is optimal health because it gives students the best outcomes. And also, I wanted to say that these health ed standards are very specific about what can be taught. Here's some of the examples. I'm just going to give you one from 7, 8, and 9, and there are many others. In 7th grade, discuss how risky choices influence the likelihood of unhealthy behaviors. Again, that is optimal health, and it creates that through HB 195 to align state law with state standards. 7th grade, again, model refusal skills to avoid health risk. Yet again, optimal health. Create a plan for eliminating personal unhealthy behaviors such as tobacco, alcohol, and sexual activity for 8th grade. HB 195 is optimal health and a legal complement. 9 through 12, develop a thoughtful decision-making process in health-related situations. Examples of that are saying no to sex, alcohol, and other drugs. No equals risk avoidance.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, okay.
Next, I'm going to call an opponent, Christina Clark Okarmas. Did I mess that up?
Nope, you got it just right. Thank you so much. My name is Christina Clark Okarmas. I am the executive director from the aforementioned Alabama Campaign for Adolescent Sexual Health, and I am in House District 74. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing young people with the knowledge and skills necessary to be safe and healthy in their relationships. I'd first like to highlight how unnecessary HB 195 is. Alabama's current sex education law states that if sex education is taught, it must emphasize abstinence, while also providing medically accurate information about prevention methods, such as contraception. The law was updated with bipartisan support in 2021. The updated law removed homophobic language and added medical accuracy. Again, this was a bipartisan effort, and I think most of us can agree that young people need messages of abstinence and prevention when it comes to sex. This bill, HB 195, is an archaic and dangerous piece of legislation for our youth. Alabama has the 5th highest teen birth rate in the country. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which the state of Alabama mysteriously discontinued in 2023, revealed that in 2019, nearly half of all high school students have a sexual experience before they graduate from high school. In Alabama, STI and HIV rates are disproportionately higher for young people ages 15 to 24 than any other age group. For these reasons and many more, an abstinence only until marriage approach to sex education is harmful for our youth. Abstinence-only programs are opposed by leading medical organizations, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and the Society for Adolescent Medicine. Abstinence-only is not medically accurate, which is in direct opposition to the updated 2021 law. Research has shown over and over that abstinence-only programs do not work in reducing teen pregnancy, STIs, or HIV. And clearly, Alabama's youth, like youth in many other states, are engaging in sexual activity. The just say no approach is unrealistic, and abstinence-only programs withhold life-saving information.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to call Courtney McKinney, who is an opponent.
Good afternoon. My name is Courtney McKinney, and I live here in Montgomery in District 2. I'm also the mother to 3 children who have all been educated here in Alabama public schools, and I also serve the Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham as their Director of Lifespan Faith Development. While the intention behind House Bill 195 may be to protect the well-being of our students, it's crucial to examine its impacts and implications. Numerous studies have shown that abstinence-only or sexual risk avoidance programs do not work in reducing sexual activity. At best, they have no effect at all, and at worst, they are harmful to the youth, leading to shame and trauma. They often fail to prevent risky sexual behaviors and may lead young people uninformed about the crucial aspects of their sexual health. By restricting the curriculum to abstinence exclusively, we risk depriving our students of knowledge they need to make informed decisions about their bodies and their relationships. Education is a powerful tool, as you all know. It's essential that our students have the knowledge and skills to protect themselves and make responsible choices as they enter adulthood. Abstinence is one of the important tools and only works as long as the person continues to use abstinence. Once they stop using abstinence, they need to know how to protect themselves from things like unplanned pregnancies, STIs, and HIV. For example, HB 195 makes it impossible for educators to share medically accurate information about contraception. Contraception and condoms are incredibly effective in preventing unplanned pregnancies, STIs, and HIV. In addition, our current sex education law allows schools to emphasize abstinence only while still providing medically accurate information on contraception. Mandating abstinence-only education perpetuates harmful stereotypes and stigmatizes individuals who engage in non-marital sexual activity. This narrow approach fails to recognize the diversity of our student populations and the different values and beliefs held by their families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, I'm going to call Marty Carroll, and they are a proponent.
Good afternoon. My name is Marty Carell, and I am with the Women's Resource Center from Mobile. Today, I stand before you a champion of our commitment to the HB 195 bill and the SRA curriculum. Since 2019, we have aligned our curriculum with SRA, which mirrors the sexual education outlined in HB 195. Our program is a 5-week program where we're in the schools 1 day a week. And it's conducted in the schools, like I said, 1 day a week. Thanks to the invitation and acceptance of school administrators, we have successfully reached 9,169 students, establishing an impressive 24,324 points of contact. Our curriculum is medically accurate, age appropriate, and aligned to the Alabama DOE health education standards. This cornerstone of our program not only empowers students, but also fosters trust between educators and learners. Teachers witnessing firsthand the positive changes that in the students' lives has fervently encouraged us to return every semester that we have been in the schools. It equips students grades 9 through 12 with essential skills on the following: embracing self-discovery, harnessing personality tests to assist students in recognizing personal strengths, opportunities, and aspirations, safeguarding love, recognizing warning signs, and establishing healthy boundaries to nurture lasting relationships, promoting family well-being, which is encouraging the development of a family plan to address and eradicate unhealthy personal behaviors such as alcohol, drug use, excessive social media, and so many other things, safely maneuvering through the digital world, and promoting sexual risk avoidance, and which you've heard mentioned before. The success of the SRA curriculum is supported by concrete evidence from statewide statistics, according to the Alabama Vital Statistics Report spanning 50 years from 1970 to 2020. There's been a remarkable 76% decrease in teen births. From 2010 to 2020, there has been a substantial 47% drop in teen pregnancy rates.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to call Vanessa Tate Finney as an opponent.
Thank you. My name is Vanessa Tate Finney, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of Dr. Janine Arbuckle. Dr. Arbuckle is an obstetrician gynecologist with a subspecialty focus in pediatric and adolescent gynecology. She is, in addition to providing general obstetric and gynecological care, she has provided gynecological care to children and adolescents throughout the state of Alabama for the past 10 years. This statement today is on behalf of the Alabama section of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, or ACOG. ACOG is this specialty's premier professional membership organization dedicated to evidence-based practice and the improvement of women's health. The Alabama section represents more than 650 OBGYNs and partners in women's health in the state. This testimony today is in opposition of HB 195, which would restrict the ability to provide evidence-based, medically accurate, and age-appropriate sex education. Adolescence has long been considered a period of time when people are especially susceptible to engaging in risky behaviors. As mentioned before, the 2019 Youth Risk Behavior Survey conducted by the CDC, 41% of all high school students in the in Alabama have engaged in sexual activity, and the vast majority, nearly 80% of them, did not use any type of STI or pregnancy prevention. Alabama has the fifth highest teen birth rate, a 950% increase in congenital syphilis, and increases in chlamydia and gonorrhea over the past 2 years. Studies have demonstrated that comprehensive sex education programs reduce the rates of sexual activity, sexual risk behaviors such as the number of partners and unprotected intercourse, sexually transmitted infections, and adolescent pregnancy. Comprehensive sex education should be medically accurate, evidence-based, and age-appropriate. It should include the benefits of delaying sexual intercourse while also providing information about normal reproductive development, contraception to prevent unintended pregnancies, as well as barrier protection to prevent sexually transmitted infections. As parents, educators, and healthcare providers, we are obligated to equip adolescents with comprehensive sex education. HB 195 would reduce adolescent access to evidence-based sex education and, contrary to its intended purpose, would contribute to higher rates of sexual risk behaviors and teen pregnancy in Alabama.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'll call Beth Pruitt, a proponent.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Pruitt, and I began teaching sexual risk avoidance education in high schools in Central Alabama in 2013. I have been doing this a little over 10 years, and at various times I've been in 10 different high schools, 15 different health teachers, and have taught probably close to 15,000 students myself. It is a misconception that sexual risk avoidance education is not going to include the information that teens need to make a good, healthy choice. If abstinence only meant only talking about abstinence, then I would only need 5 minutes of a health class. I take 4 days to present all the material I present. We talk about healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships. We define consent and coercion. We discuss what can impact consent, like their age or drug and alcohol use. We also spend a whole class period on STDs and STIs, sexually transmitted diseases or infections. So much so that I actually am often referred to in the schools as the STD lady. We talk about risk. We discuss that risk. We also give them information about their resources if they are at risk, for testing, for treatment, for addressing things in future relationships. There is no stigma. There's just facts. We also discuss pregnancy, the 3 really difficult options that a young person faces when facing an unplanned pregnancy or when that occurs, and how that can impact their future, their education, their plans and goals, their relationships and social life, how their decisions will impact not just them, but their families, their communities. And yes, we do discuss risk reduction. We talk about birth control and condoms. I define those items, tell them what they do, what they don't do. We need to discuss that, how they are highly effective, but birth control provides zero protection against STDs and STIs. Condoms have, according to the CDC, an 18% typical use failure rate. We talk about what goes into that failure rate, how that works. Again, according to the CDC, no protective measure is 100%. Condom use cannot guarantee absolute protection. We discuss this. SRA education is a holistic approach that engages and informs all aspects of our students' physical, emotional, mental, and social health. We provide all the information they need to make a good, healthy choice, and we want our students to have the best chance for success. We encourage them to think, to learn, to seek parental or adult guidance when needed, and to make good, healthy choices for good, healthy outcomes. Best choices for students is for their optimal health. Thank you.
Next, I call an opponent, Hannah Burkle.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Hannah Burkle, and I speak today as a professional health educator with Planned Parenthood Southeast, but also as a sister to 3 really incredible Alabama teens and the adult daughter of a former Alabama teen mom. Um, Over and over, studies do show that abstinence only programs don't actually delay the initiation of sexual activity, nor do they reduce the number of sexual partners among teenagers. Research published in the Journal of Adolescent Health in 2018 found that abstinence only programs had little to no impact on adolescent sexual behavior or their contraceptive use. And I'd be happy to share with the committee some of these studies if we have time before the vote. Um, we at Planned Parenthood also agree and believe that parents are the first and most important educators for their children. And from these studies, as well as my work, I know that Alabama parents want comprehensive education for their kids. They want this. Many parents who have gone through great lengths to organize outside of school access to education for their youth. And I actually have a couple with me today. But yeah, anyways, I've also had the honor of personally working with many teen parents, and I kind of want to give them a voice in the room. Through these relationships, I've learned that many teen parents believe their circumstances would have been different if they had upfront access to more comprehensive information. While I am a firm believer that teen parents can be very good parents, knowing that many young parents report a possible change in their outcomes with better upfront information is a sign that we're moving in the wrong direction with this bill. As mentioned earlier, it's also critical to bring attention to the fact that Alabama has discontinued the use of the Healthy Youth Survey. This survey tracks key health behaviors, including sexual behavior, mental health, and substance use. Without this survey, we lose the ability to track the potential outcomes from this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'll call Susan Stewart, and an opponent.
Hello again. This time I'm speaking on my own behalf. I'm Susan Stewart. I'm from Huntsville. I'm in District 10. I don't have a representative right now, but I live near, oh, he's not here. Anyway, I'm speaking on my own behalf this time in opposition to HB 195. When my own children were subjected to abstinence-only education 20 years ago in the Huntsville City Schools, they came home with disturbing, fabricated stories about the consequences of normal sexual activity and actual lies about the effectiveness of contraception. After public rejection of these early abstinence-only programs, the same ideas have appeared again with their emphasis on shame, fear, and sexism rebranded as sexual risk avoidance. I found out that much of the dangerous misinformation included in that Huntsville program and in current program relies on junk science promoted by the American College of Pediatricians, a tiny fringe group which has been designated a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I'm hearing some of it today, the medically accurate things like about condom failure rates. You might want to know that they include when you intend to use a condom, but then you don't. So encouraging contraceptive use might be better than discouraging it. Plenty of robust data shows that abstinence-only education, SRA, does nothing to reduce risky behavior by teenagers, and it increases the rate of STIs. Comprehensive sex education actually delays sexual activity among teenagers. 95% of people have sex before marriage. That's unchanged since the 1950s. In states that equip young people with medically accurate information and increased access to birth control, the rate of teenage pregnancy and abortion has gone down over the last 15 years. Yeah, most parents do support teaching abstinence, but they support it as part of comprehensive sex education because you will find the statistics also show that most parents support teaching comprehensive sex education. If you are truly pro-life, vote no on HB 195.
Thank you. I call proponent Pat Ellis.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Ellis with Eagle Forum, House District 48. Those who oppose HB 195 would have you believe if comprehensive sex ed isn't taught, pregnancy and disease will be rampant. Independent studies, studies not funded by comprehensive sex ed, tell a different story. First, let me give you a window into the mindset of those promoting comprehensive sex ed, and this is from a 2022 webinar by ACASH. Quote, they, children, can experiment if they need to. Maybe they need to know, am I straight or am I gay? Am I bisexual or pansexual? It's okay if you're only attracted to one sex now, and later you're attracted to multiple sexes. Talk about confusing children. This report from the Claremont Institute is titled The Sex Ed Industrial Complex, How Conservative School Districts Come to Peddle Radical Sex Education to Children. According to Claremont, what CSE proponents call sex ed should be called grooming. Quote, they are grooming students to be the vanguard of sexual perversity and degeneracy in a sexually liberated America, end quote. Two of the most egregious programs received over $1,283,000 from the Alabama Department of Public Health. This report from the Institute of Research and Evaluation has produced over 100 studies of school-based sex ed. It's entitled An Evidence-Based Rebuttal to a Critique of Abstinence Until Marriage Education. Here are some of their findings. 1, evidence indicates that sexual activity by adolescents, especially females, is associated with psychological and/or physical harm not prevented by condom use. 2, sexual activity is disproportionately harmful to minority youth. 3, sexually active teen girls are at a higher risk for depression and suicide. Evidence does not show that comprehensive sex ed programs have been effective. Evidence shows true abstinence education has provided protection that is superior to comprehensive sex ed. I highly recommend this 8-page report to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I call Landon Nichols. Did I say that right, Landon? An opponent.
Esteemed committee members, first and foremost, let me thank you for your time today. I know it's incredibly valuable, so I'll try to be brief. So my name is Landon Nichols. I'm a long-haired country boy from Perry County, House District 67. So I love hunting, fishing, family, and God, just like I'm sure most of you on this committee do. I also care deeply about our youth and about the sexual wellness and the wellness in general of all Alabamians, just like you. In my day job, I'm working to end the HIV epidemic, and thanks to modern advancements in medication and treatment and prevention, we are on the cusp of being able to do that. Unfortunately, this bill, as it's written, will set us back years, if not decades. I believe the goal of public policy is to address the realities before us in an effort to build a better world. The reality is, existing sex education programs already do emphasize abstinence as the only 100% effective strategy to prevent pregnancy, STIs, and HIV. We already do discuss consent and making good decisions. The reality is our youths need and deserve medically accurate, age-appropriate sex education to ensure they're prepared to protect their health when they eventually decide it's the right time with the right person. And the reality is, y'all, that time will come, as it did for us all. My friends, we cannot craft policy for the world as we wish it was. We may wish teens wouldn't have sex, but they are. We can wish that the rates of syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, and other STIs weren't going up, but the data tells us otherwise. We must reckon with the world as it is. And look, I support having parents more engaged in kids' education, especially when it comes to sex education. I believe parents should have a right to opt their child out if they aren't comfortable with the course content. But the wishes of individual parents should not limit the freedom to choose for the rest of us. Data has consistently shown that medically accurate, age-appropriate sex education does not make youth more likely to engage in sexual activity. It does, however, lead to a reduction in unplanned pregnancy, STIs, and HIV when they eventually do. For the sake of the progress we're making in the fight to end HIV, in hopes of curbing recent spikes in STIs, and in an effort to equip our young people with the resources they need to protect their health, I'm asking you to consider workshopping this bill before passage.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Next, I call a proponent, Becky Garrettson.
That you have, I want to reference that. Are you getting sick of statistic this, study that, blah, blah? I see eyes are glazing over. I want you to understand a little bit about this bill. Let me just bring it back down for you. This bill is not an abstinence-only bill. This bill complies with Alabama law. It is age-appropriate. It is medically accurate.
It does discuss methods of contraception, pregnancy, STIs, STDs, risky behavior, all of that. The difference is the way we teach it. Comprehensive sex ed versus sexual risk avoidance. I want to give you a sample, and I'm going to read it so y'all can hear this. On the back of this flyer that you have, this is a sample of a true comprehensive sex ed curriculum. Alabama has received $1.14 million to teach this in 13 of our counties. And we're not just talking, like Pat said earlier, this is grooming. This is sex ed curriculum, comprehensive sex ed curriculum. How do people express their sexual feelings? What is abstinence? Okay, that's part of the title. And then it says, what kind of sex can people have by themselves? What other things might people do with their mouths? Answers may include oral sex, masturbation, grinding, anal sex, touching each other's genitals. There's a whole list there. Those were just the highlighted ones. Look at the age that this is for. The bottom. This is for ages 12 through 14. This is grooming. This is not what parents want their children to learn. This is comprehensive sex ed. Look at the next example for 12 to 14-year-olds, 12 to 18-year-olds. If a male loses his erection after putting on a condom and before intercourse, what could the couple do? Answer, continue playing and stimulating one another, relax, and enjoy the fun. Y'all, this is comprehensive sex ed. This is what we want to get away from. This is why HB 195 needs to be passed so that we protect our children from grooming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to have to give up our room for the next committee. And so what I want to do is apologize to Stephanie Smith, a proponent, and to Alex and Jordan, who spoke on the last bill, and say I'm sorry. We will discuss this when we get back together. I do encourage both opponents and proponents, if you've got suggestions that you think would improve, to get with the sponsor. And I encourage our committee to get with each other, to get with the sponsor on any questions that they have. So at this time, we are adjourned.